Hi everyone, we're back here for another edition of On the Record. I'm Kerri Rempp with the Chadron Record. We're here with Loni Watson, the high school guidance counselor here in Chadron. We're going to talk a little bit today about the changes in the honor system at graduation. We're moving away from the valedictorian and salutatorian format.
We are.
Going to go with the laude system that's a little more familiar to maybe college-aged parents if they have been through that before. So talk a little bit about what prompted the decision to move toward that.
You bet. When I started as a school counselor here, I had started to notice that there were some prominent schools in Nebraska moving away from class rank specifically. I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to the salutatorian and valedictorian at that time. Just the ranking I noticed was there were just a few schools that were moving away from it. So Mr. Mack and I started research about 4 years ago on this, and we found out that this was a nationwide trend. That not only were schools in Nebraska moving away from ranking kids against each other, but really the East Coast they were done with it. They had been done with it then. We weren't quite ready then. There wasn't quite enough research, and so we just started compiling after a few years of ranking students, because this was my first job as a school counselor. I realized pretty fast that, geez, the difference between your 3.9 and my 3.89 could be the difference of being in the top 10% of our class. And sometimes when you're not in the top 10% of your class, some schools ask about that. If you do rank, are you within the top percentages? And there just were kids that were as strong as students as everyone else getting ranked against each other. That I did not think was helping them when it came to scholarship game. And my whole job, my whole goal is to get those kids as much money in their pocket as possible. So it makes a big difference. So we did some research, found out it was a nationwide trend, said, well, we can start a trend out here in western Nebraska, and got the leadership team together at the high school to put together a system that we thought just put kids in a better position.
Okay, and so it's starting with this fall with the incoming sophomores, so the kids who were freshmen last year will go under this new system and will be ranked on the laude system when they graduate high school. So talk a little bit about what that means for that group of kids in terms of selecting classes, the flexibility it gives them, and where that'll all end up in terms of graduation and their final.
You bet. We will roll this out with the class of 2021, and the reason we had to wait a little bit is because not only is there a GPA recognition for being summa, magna, or cum laude, there's also a core class requirement. So you have to take some advanced coursework to be recognized in this system, and so we couldn't roll it out to every kid because they hadn't had the opportunity to pick their classes yet. So what it means is that our class of 2021 and beyond will need to, if they want to graduate with extra honors, they will need to select some advanced coursework. So they'll have to maintain a minimum GPA. Our first one starts at right around 3.6, and they'll have to have a couple credits of coursework beyond what's required. So for example, the state of Nebraska says you have to have 3 credits of science. Maybe a kid would take a 4th science class. Same thing in math. State of Nebraska says you have to have 3 math classes. Well, they would have to take maybe a 4th one. Not in all areas, but a couple. They have to have a couple of core classes. So part of our goal with this cum laude system is to have students not be scared to take some harder classes because they're not scared of being ranked against somebody else. They're taking it because it helps them get that recognition and puts them in good position.
Do you feel like it's going to even out, maybe compare apples to apples a little better in terms of what those classes are? If you've got a 389 and I've got a 389, but I took easy classes and you took advanced classes, are 389 maybe used to mean the same thing? Is it more equal now?
Well, that is the whole problem with when we get into the talk about valedictorian and salutatorian. It really doesn't matter too much past that, but when you rank kids 1 and 2 and give them a speaking position or a medal, man, it'd be nice to be running the same race. If you and I take off on a race and I get to run the 100 and you have to run the 400, I mean, it's just not fair. And that's what we found with valedictorian and salutatorian is it did not matter how stringent of a system we put together unless we said you will take every class the same it just wasn't fair.
Mhm.
Because you have students who are really strong maybe in the math and sciences, students
Sure.
who are strong in maybe English and performing arts or whatever the case may be, they should be able to take the classes that interest them.
Right.
And not have to be vetted against each other.
Mhm.
So,
And so let's talk about speakers at graduation. There is a system set up within this to kind of recognize still some student achievement and talk a little bit about how everybody competes for those spots now.
you betcha. So, in order to be a graduation speaker, class of 2021 and beyond, you have to have an honor. So you have to graduate at least cum laude, which would be the 3.6. But you also have to submit a speech. And we're going to have a student and teacher panel to read speeches anonymously, so they will not know who the
Mhm.
speakers, who wrote the speech. And we're going to select 2 from there. Our stipulation is one of the speakers we want to be a summa cum laude kiddo, so one of our highest honors, which would be our 4.0
4.0.
students. Mr. Mack will then, once the committee selects the 2 speakers, he will then pick the order the speeches go. But we're excited, we're going to get some student leadership involved in this too,
Mhm.
so the students feel that they have a say in who their graduation
Sure.
speakers are.
And so have you talked to the kids about this? Are they kind of excited about it? And what about parents? What's your feedback been from them as well?
My feedback, everyone asks me, like, what are your complaints? What have you heard? And the complaint I hear every time is, why can't you start this sooner? You know? And so then I'm like, I wish we could, but we got to give those kids a chance to
Mhm.
get the core coursework done. It would not be fair to roll it out now. It just wouldn't. So, awesome feedback. Like I said, the only complaint I have is, I wish this was going to be
Mhm.
implemented this year. Because when you think about it, right now at graduation, we give 2 medals for the rank 1 and 2, and maybe 4 chords, some years 5 chords for 4.0 students, and that's the only thing we honor besides the National Honor Society. So if you think of our 3-6 kids and higher, we're gonna give, heck, last year there would have been 20 kids would have got an extra honor at graduation.
Sure.
Something to put on the resume, something to put on their,
Scholarship
oh,
applications.
absolutely, yeah. So I'm excited, when you're honoring more kids and in a fair way, I think it makes a lot more sense.
Sure. And then just talk about, there's 3 levels to it and some different requirements for how many core, classes you have to take. So talk a little bit about that breakdown.
You bet. We did a lot of research about what other schools are doing across the state and the nation. We decided to start our first honors cum laude, and that's right above a 3.6, so 3.667. And then we have magna cum laude, which averages out to about an A minus, and that's the 3.8. And then our summa cum laude, our highest honor, is still our 4.0 students. We'll do 3 different color chords at graduation, so each level will be corded differently.
Recognizable.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And I assume if anybody has questions or, concerns or anything like that, they can come in and visit with you or Mr. Mack and
You bet.
figure
Yep.
out what it means for their kid.
Absolutely, yeah. Policy can be confusing, and so we've got it written down. It will be in our handbook online, and of course, anyone could call me all the time, or Mr.
All
Mack
right.
as well. So.
All right. Thank you. That's another session of On the Record. Thanks for tuning in.